We continue now with Rudolf Steiner, where we were talking about before quite a few things and how to get to know him through the Lockman book, and then that book on the Bhagavad Gita and St. Paul. I won't go into that in detail, but one thing I do want to say is when you come to the actual books, for me, the most interesting, of course, because I went to a theological school, would be how he interprets books of the Bible. Now, for example, if you take Steiner's book on Genesis, which you see here, this goes all the way through Genesis, but with his own particular understanding of his own abilities to have visions, be a mystic, also be an educator, and puts all of this together so that you get his point of view of the book of Genesis. The other one I actually have is the Gospel of Matthew, according to Steiner. And again, when you go through this, you have that same deep penetration that he has. And it's interesting in how he takes each gospel differently than the others, as others do as well. But again, you have his whole idea of those things in here which are not found in other understandings of what the books in the Bible mean. That's why they are so valuable. And then the last actual one I have in hand is somewhat thick, as you might expect, the book of Revelation. Now that goes into great detail about all kinds of things related to all that goes on in the book of Revelation. Even some drawings that he himself did during his lectures, as you see right there. So these are lectures in the series, and that's what he is doing. And this book in particular, being a book that has dealt with in so many different ways, is particularly interesting because it's an interpretation, again, that you will not find in any other book of the Bible at all. Now, on my computer, on a memory card, I also have exactly what he wrote about the Gospel of Matthew, the Gospel of Mark, the Gospel of Luke, and the Gospel of John, exactly as he wrote it. Plus, I have the Apocalypse of St. John, which of course means the book of Revelation. Then the last one I have is particularly interesting. It's called the Gospel of St. John in relation to the other Gospels. Now, remember when we were talking at the Bible before, we told you that the synoptic Gospels, the first three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are different than the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John is particularly concerned with the inner Jesus, the inner knowing of Jesus, the inner life of Jesus, the inner realm of Jesus, and so forth. So it is the flip side of the coin of the other three synoptic or similar points of view Gospels, as we said before. Therefore, Steiner's use of this would be particularly interesting because there are others who have to say how they think the Gospel of John is different from the first three and why it is different from the first three. So that particular file of Steiner's, being quite long, of course, would be fascinating to read. So, as you can see, Steiner also has the interpretations of the Bible books, which are, of course, particularly interesting to me. And I think any of you who would find any of these books, if you are a person of religious persuasion, would find more revealing, perhaps, than any other you have ever read, although, as usual, difficult to understand.